Brought to you by DK Audio.
DK Audio presents A Short History of the Vietnam War by DK, read by Chris Hoekstra. A Short History of the Vietnam War. Forward. At the end of World War II, the United States emerged as a political and economic superpower in sole possession of nuclear weapons. While America prospered and its influence spread around the globe, it faced a daunting challenge. Despite suffering massive human and economic losses, the Soviet Union also sought to use its newly found power to extend its influence and to spread its contrasting tenets of communism abroad in a direct challenge to the United States. By the late 1940s, communism was firmly entrenched in Eastern Europe. In 1949, communist forces seized control of China, while the Soviets exploded their first atomic bomb, ending America's nuclear monopoly. Fearful of mutually assured nuclear annihilation, both East and West settled into an uneasy Cold War. But that by no means meant an end to conflict. Throughout the latter half of the 20th century, the Cold War frequently erupted into indirect military combat through the use of proxies. While the United States, Communist China, and the Soviet Union parried to an uneasy truce in Korea in the early 1950s. Revolutionaries in Indochina fought successfully for their independence from France. The peace was short-lived, as Vietnam was divided between the Communist North and the capitalist South. Tensions rose until open conflict once again broke out in the early 1960s. This time, with the United States entering the fray to counter Soviet influence in the region. America's involvement increased just as the long-brewing social revolution erupted in the United States. As more advisors and then combat troops were sent to support South Vietnam, many American citizens began to openly question the nation's involvement in a foreign war. When so many pressing social issues needed to take precedent, this tumultuous internal conflict was openly expressed as protests, all set against the backdrop of an increasingly unpopular war. Searing images of death and destruction filled television screens during the evening news, further fanning unrest and seismic social upheaval within America's diverse society. This book takes the reader on a carefully crafted journey through the maze of events that became the war in Vietnam. Remarkably thorough and extraordinarily well illustrated, this engaging book provides a well-written analysis through an American lens, but does not hesitate to tell the story, no matter how difficult or painful. It is an excellent and highly readable synopsis of a very complicated era and a very complicated war. F. Robert Vanderlinden, Ph.D., Curator of Aeronautics, Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. A smoke flare marks the landing spot for an incoming medevac helicopter after a battle in Ah Shaw Valley. Chapter 1. The background before March 1959. Resistance to French rule grew in Indochina in the early 20th century, as communist thinkers encouraged criticism of colonialism. The First Indochina War would win Vietnam its freedom from colonial oppression, but also lead to a dangerous rift between North and South. Vive la France! Soldiers of the 3rd Regiment of the French Foreign Legion stand to attention outside their headquarters at Lang Son in 1950. A decisive Viet Minh victory at the Battle of Route Coloniale 4, a highway to the French base at Cao Bang, saw French units abandon Lang Son later that year. In the 19th century, France conquered Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos, creating the colony of French Indochina. The French divided Vietnam into 3 parts: Tonkin, Annam, and Cochin China. Repressing nationalist revolts, the French maintained colonial rule in Vietnam until World War II, when Indochina was occupied by the Japanese. At the war's end, the communist-led Viet Minh declared Vietnam.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?